Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Zoom meeting number 53, which starts out the new year of 2025. I'm here today with Kate Lannan from A Haven, which supports children and families when someone has died. And so we've got sort of a somber note there to begin. And that's really part of what learning life skills together is about. The life skills that we're learning are the ones that get us through the hardest parts of our lives. And certainly we'll be talking about that. And having said that, I'd like to invite us into a little bit of an awareness practice, just to get ourselves settled so that maybe it's a little easier to listen and to think clearly about what we're hearing. So if you'd like, you could close your eyes. If you're listening to this while you're driving, please don't. But just settling into wherever you are, if you're lying down, if you're standing up, if you're sitting, just feeling the fact that gravity is holding you where you are. There's very little effort that you really need to sit or stand or lie down. So if you find that you're meeting a lot of effort, you could maybe just notice that and see what happens as you notice the effort. So maybe feeling how you are right now. You might notice something like your feet on the floor or your feet in your shoes. Or if you're barefoot, your feet in the air. And that could be a place where you bring your attention. Very simply, just feeling what you feel at your feet. And you may notice as you do that your mind goes off somewhere. You start thinking about something, or maybe you're in touch with an emotion. And so that's fine. And now you've noticed something about yourself. And you can bring your attention back to your feet. And so maybe it goes like that. You pay attention to your feet. You notice that you're not, that you're somewhere else. And then you come back. That's a practice of attention. We're learning to notice where our attention is. That's really kind of the first step in our life skills, is noticing what's happening with us. So this can be easy and restful. It's not a competition. We're not trying to hold our attention long and effortfully. We're just hanging out with ourselves. our mind goes away. We notice eventually, and we bring it back with a smile. And when you're ready, if your eyes have been closed, you could open them. Otherwise, you might look around a little more, see what's what. And I have here with me Kate, and I'm going to check in with her and see how this practice was for her.
Hello. Thank you, Don. Thank you for having me. That was lovely. There's lots of rushing throughout my day often, and so when I do actually take a minute to be still or to pause, initially it always feels a little jarring, and then with the permission to actually just be still and not think about what's coming next or where I'm going next or what I need to do next, to actually just take that moment to sit and rest is a comfort. So,
okay, comfort. And so that's probably one of the words that we might use from time to time as we're talking about the work at a haven. So I'm wondering if you could just give us kind of an introduction to a haven and what happens there.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, so as you mentioned, a haven is a nonprofit organization located in Exton, Pennsylvania, serving kids and families in Chester County after someone has died. So we work with kids ages 3 to 25 and their caregivers, their grown-ups, whoever their important grown-ups happen to be. And as you mentioned in the beginning, and I think this is often how people feel when they hear about a haven. There's maybe a sense of, what a somber work or what a somber place that must be. And what we find really is that a haven is a boisterous and joyful place full of hope. And we get to do the work, as you are doing too, of helping kids and grown-ups connect over their shared life experiences. That's really what we're doing there. We happen to do that around the subject area of grief. We happen to encounter families after someone has died when they're navigating something really painful and really difficult. But ultimately, at its core, it is the work of helping kids and grown-ups navigate their lives together.
Yeah. And so it's, in some sense, using these life skills, and I'm wondering if I go through the 4 life skills and maybe even some of the things that we do around them, you might talk with us about how that sort of shows up in the work that you're doing at a haven.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that is the work. So, we'll have lots to say as we go through the 4.
All right. So the first one, we were just playing with a little bit, which is attention, sort of knowing what's happening around us, but also what's happening inside us. So it goes sort of along to, wow, I see all these things, or I'm having all this input, and now how do I feel inside, and what exactly is it that I'm feeling? Because that's not easy.
It's really not.
Yeah, and especially around grief, it's really hard to know exactly what you're feeling.
It is, and this is especially challenging too when a young person experiences grief. So kids grieve very differently than adults. And so an adult who has experienced the death of someone they love and is grieving that can identify that that's the experience that they're having. There's some emotional vocabulary that adults have that kids oftentimes don't, or that kids are kind of learning. And so adults can kind of identify the feelings that they're having. And adults tend to carry those emotions with them in a way that they're aware of for longer than children do. So children tend to dip in and out of grief much more quickly than adults do. So it's normal for a child to be sad and emoting in one moment, and the very next moment, they've seen their favorite toy across the room and they want to go and play. And that can be very jarring for adults because the kids go back and forth.
Yeah.
And we think, oh, they don't understand what's happened, or they're not really feeling this very deeply, when really they are. It's just they're very present in each moment, and so they tend to cycle through things more quickly than adults do. But the other thing for kids is that they feel their emotions very physically. So this attention piece that you brought up is important for kids because their bodies will feel very overwhelmed, very out of control, but they can't identify why. So kids carry their grief very physically, and that's important for adults to know because we can help kids identify some additional physical feelings that they might carry with them as a part of the grieving process.
Yeah, yeah. And so the whole thing comes down to that being able to name what's going on.
Yes, noticing and naming. And this is important for kids, but also the adults around them, including their school teachers, because a child who's carrying a lot of emotions in their body in the classroom can't be still. They can't focus. They are more prone to be dysregulated or to have outbursts in the classroom, and that's not because they're a bad student. It's because their body is overwhelmed by the emotional experience.
Yeah. And so, I mean, one of the big skills that we teach in sort of the next skill level of emotion regulation is name it to tame it. Mm-hmm. So the idea
I like that. I love a rhyme.
As we have the language for something, our brain is working differently.
Yes.
The more intellectual part, the front part of the brain, the part that's really the controller, is on at that point as we have language for how we're feeling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of we're not teaching these things in the extreme situation. We're teaching I'm a little angry with my younger brother, kind of thing. That's what I'm feeling, and so that's where we're starting. But that skill, when you're in a more difficult, deeper situation like grief, to be able to turn inward and say, "Oh, what am I feeling?" Because we don't necessarily want to do that.
No, it can be very challenging. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So when we can manage it, and then we can know what it is and know the language, we can talk about it, which I think is probably a big part.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and kids get the message, too, that it's okay to talk about it when we lead that conversation with them, that they can know that there's nothing wrong with the way that you're feeling. And in addition to that, nothing wrong with being able to talk about it or point it out or say, I'm having a hard time right now. I'm really overwhelmed, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And so this idea of, sort of the second skill of emotion regulation, how does that look? How does that come into your work?
With the emotion regulation?
Emotion regulation piece.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that you are having a broad emotional experience every day is key, right? Like you will cycle through many different emotions over the course of the day, and that's just a normal part of the human experience. Yeah. And then, you and I have talked too about this idea of distress tolerance, being able to tolerate it and know that not everything needs to be handled or addressed or tamped down. There is this kind of experience of just feeling what you are feeling.
Yeah. To just allow it to play itself out is definitely a skill.
And then, that ties back into the attention and the awareness of it. And there is a little bit more of a sense of control when you're able to realize that an emotion is coming up and to trust your own ability to just hold it and move through that moment.
Yeah. So we often talk about it as there's a 20-minute time frame, that you can time out. I'm feeling this way now. What's it going to be like, 20 minutes from now? Because we do change over time, even if it's only within the same, name or construct of the emotion, so that people really get a sense of, it is more fluid than this. It's not like, I feel this way and it's going to be forever.
Yes, this is
because
it now
the forever
thing,
yes. or the never, I'm never going to feel X way again, is such a hard thought to have.
Absolutely. And I think that in particular is one of the things that makes grief feel very scary, is that we know that with the death, there is a forever, there is a never again with the death. And yet the emotional piece of it is not that. There is, again, like you were just saying, that sense of riding the wave, taking each moment as it comes. And again, especially for kids. Kids will do that process much more quickly than adults.
Yeah. I love what you were saying about that, about the parents having these sort of emotions that go for a long time, and the kids, riding those very small, choppy waves all the time, and does everybody understand that? Kids understand what's going on with the parents, and parents understand what's going on with the kids, and that sounds really important.
Really important.
Yeah,
and being able to verbalize that out loud is so important.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this way. It's okay that I'm feeling this way. I might feel this way for a little while, and I'll be okay, and I can still take care of you.
Yeah. So that, we've sort of covered all four.
I know. I was thinking. I didn't want to go off.
Yeah, no.
Order.
It's perfect because they're really not like it's this and then this and then this. It's all, they all work together. It's just that as we're in learning life skills, trying to say, okay, well, let's take it easy and let's
break it down.
Let's break it down into these four things. So we have the attention and the emotion regulation and the distress tolerance, and then finally that communication piece, being able to talk about how you feel and what's going on with you. And at the second level, at the high level, be able to understand what's going on with the other person. When we're talking about working with kids, a lot of our focus is on kids sort of 12 and under. So where that understanding yourself is just the key to all of it. And then we build on that, and especially in that distress tolerance part and in the effective communications part. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is, as we're going through our 4 skills and the training, quote unquote, sharing of them is how I like to say it, that the parents are sharing these skills that they have with the kids, and it makes the parents more conscious that they have the skills and should be practicing them as well as, sharing them with the kids. But we try to say, let's do this in situations that are also good for us. And so the very first one we have is going for a walk. Just going out, paying attention to what's around you and talking about it, right? And so just the act of going for a walk, we know, is really helpful to us. And it also puts the kids and the carers in physical proximity that they're not usually in, which is side by side rather than face to face, which really changes how we communicate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so
Much less pressure
yeah.
that way for kids. And that's another area too, when you're taking a walk and so you're moving your body and there's kind of this, not quite defined endpoint. And so I think it gives the kids the ability to choose when they feel ready to speak up. And so, as you are walking with your kids, really working hard to allow for quiet, allow for silence, allow for that door to conversation to also be open so that the kids can step through in their own way.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And then where you go to walk, not where you walk to, but where you go to walk is another thing. Because, one of the next thing, the next experience that we try to promote and have people share these skills in is beauty and awe. And so being out in nature is kind of, well, as long as we're taking a walk, what if we walk under some trees? What if we walk along the beach? What if we do something like that where we're actually, our body, mind is being worked on by where we are.
Yes.
So nature is soothing us. Nature is bringing us what it has to bring.
And for people who are grieving, nature offers us the reminder that we're existing through this kind of normal cycle that all living things go through. There is comfort in the normalization, I think, of that this is the nature of things. It's normal for death to happen.
Yeah.
Though it is so distressing. It's so painful. The grief is very real. To be outside and reminded of the cycle that is all around us all the time in and of itself can be very healing too.
Yeah. So which brings us to the next thing, which is making. And so this is kind of, as I was saying, the attention and the emotion regulation are really what we focus on with the younger kids. And then as we get older, the distress tolerance becomes really much more of a necessity. And, it's what parents, carers struggle with as much as their older children, And so one of the situations that we want to put people in to share those skills is one of making. And so it's like, well, yeah, I'm feeling this way. This is going on. What can I make out of it? I mean, sometimes it's as simple as just doing the thing is helpful to us, emotionally, intellectually, to make breakfast, together, to do those things together is helpful. But there's also that whole level of making that, as you were speaking, I was thinking about some of the greatest poets in our language and in any language really are dealing with those big emotions like grief.
Yes.
I mean, I was reminded the other day of Alfred Lord Tennyson's great poem that goes on and on and on, In Memoriam. So it was his grief over the loss of a fellow student in college. He didn't finish it until year 11. So it's like we need to do things to help ourselves through these times.
Absolutely.
And kind of that's a very big one.
Right.
That's a big amount of work. And at the same time, I think it shows the value of that. And of course, for everyone that he shared it with, which is the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too is such a great reminder that your grief does stay with you. Grief is not a process that you complete and then you're all done and you move on. Your grief stays with you. And again, for kids, this is true too, because they re-grieve the death at each new developmental stage as they can understand the death in a different way, the permanency of the death, the relationship that they had with the person and the loss of that. As they understand that, they re-grieve again and again and again as they grow. And so a poem that took 11 years to write is such an apt reminder of that. Really, the grief is a lifelong process, and there is no right or wrong way to express it. But grief, I do think, is meant to be shared. So it's interesting that we so often grieve in isolation because it is so heavy and so hard to talk about or to share with other people. But really, an experience that is as universal as grief is something that is meant to be shared. And so what can you make that brings other people into your experience?
Yeah. Or what have people already made that can help that?
That can be a comfort, absolutely.
Yeah. And so that takes us to our fourth
We're making excellent
that
progress.
we do. We really are, which is belonging. And so we really encourage people to find community where it matters whether they show up or not. So that these are people who care about them. We know how incredibly helpful for our health and our mental health that is. Just, sort of generally the public health studies of people who have that belonging, who have those social connections, they are healthier and stronger than folks who don't have that.
Yeah, they're critical.
And so what is it and how is it that we can be connected with others in a real way? Because there's so many opportunities to be a member of this and a member of that and join this and join that. That's coming at you all day.
All the time. Right.
Yeah. But the real thing, people who really care and a group where if you're not there, they call you up and say, "Where
and they
were
notice.
you?"
They notice.
Yeah. That really changes how we are in the world.
And is so, a space where you are invited and appreciated for being vulnerable and authentic is harder to find in a world where social media makes everything very accessible, but in a way that's not real or authentic. And it can be hard, I think, for kids who are growing up with social media as a very normal part of their existence. I think it can be hard to understand the difference between the two, which is why adults modeling that difference and the importance of the authentic connection is really important for kids to see, and important for kids to see that it's as important for adults to continue to maintain those connections as it is for kids.
Yeah.
Because as kids, we're in school. We have access to other people. We can see our classmates at school, and maybe we're signed up for a sports team or a Cubs troop. But adults often don't have those opportunities. And so really intentionally seeking out those places where you are expected and appreciated as an adult reminds your kids that that's lifelong work too.
Yeah. So sort of brings us around maybe to your work at a Haven, where you're working with groups, if I understand what y'all are after. Yeah. And so I'm wondering what that's like, what that feels like in terms of, what we've just been discussing.
Yeah, I mean, all of the things that we have been discussing are exactly, the essence of the work that we're doing at a Haven. So the groups that we offer are kind of modeled with these two structures in mind. Our groups are both family-centered and peer-to-peer support-based. So family-centered in that our hope is that when caregivers and kids come to a Haven, they leave a Haven feeling as safe to grieve together as they do when they're in the building. So we nurture the caregivers and support the caregivers as much as we are supporting the kids.
Yeah.
Because for a caregiver to leave a Haven's space and care well for their children, they have to be supported first.
Yeah.
So at a Haven on group night, kids and grown-ups come together, and everybody has the chance to be together all in one, and then also to break out into separate kind of developmental or age-based subgroups. So everybody then gets peer-to-peer time as well, including the adults, because you need to be able to talk about your experience with people who understand it, or can even say, I've been there and this is what helped me, or I don't know what to do. Has anybody felt like this before? So adults have the opportunity to do that while their kids are with other kids, their same age, their same developmental level, who can kind of connect in their own age-appropriate way at the same time. So there's that idea of the family unit needing to be able to do this work together, but that you also need other ties to your community.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
Kind of balance there.
Yes.
So, how do folks get in touch, should they need it, with a Haven?
Yeah, we are always available. Our website is www.ahaven.org. And there's a tab on there you can connect with us and email directly through the website.
Okay, well, we will post that with this
Great.
talk. So.
Great.
Yeah.
And you can also email directly to info, I-N-F-O, at ahaven.org if you're needing support or wanting to learn more about support. And then you can call too, because I know sometimes for some people the phone is what's most comfortable. Some people want to email. There's a pathway for everybody.
Yeah, it's nice to hear a voice, I gotta
It
say.
can be, yes.
Yeah.
And so our phone number at a Haven is 484-716-1807.
Well, we will post all those things for our listeners. And so, Kate, I always ask at the end of a dialogue if our guest has a word of wisdom or a watchword for us, just sort of to carry off from this talk.
I do. It feels like a high-pressure question, but I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. So this makes me chuckle a little bit because this is a bit of a buzzword at the moment because of the movie Wicked and some of the press coverage that the movie Wicked has gotten. And it kind of drummed up a lot of attention, but it's a phrase that we use often at a Haven because it really just is the essence of what is needed after a death. And so my watchword or watch phrase is holding space. We are holding space for whatever walks through the door, whatever kind of day you are having, when you are relating with your kids. If your kids are showing up and they're totally out of control or they're just having an awful day, we just are holding space for that. It is what it is. Yeah. We're going to sit with it. We're not judging it. We're just here with you journeying alongside. So holding space is the name of the game at Haven.
That is a huge gift to give someone.
Yes.
For sure.
And can be hard to do. It's hard to do in practice, but so worthwhile and important.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. All right. It's an honor to be here.